Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about how you can wind up a deceased estate faster. Now, this comes from recent experience, and I'll give some examples to illustrate as we go along. Now, there's three tips I want to talk to you about, guys. Before I get there, I just want to explain that a while ago, I did a video where I explained why it can take so long to wind up a deceased estate. And it might be a good idea to check that out. I'll put a link to that video in the description down below, and that'll give you some context. Now, I guess this video you can see is like the antidote to that video. Anyway, guys, the first thing, when the ball is in your court, don't waste time. Now, what am I talking about here? Guys, when I say the ball being in your court, I'm talking about the person who is the executor or the executor's agent, right? The person who is responsible for completing this whole thing from start to finish. When the ball is in your court, don't waste time. Now, guys, during the process, you'll find that you'll be waiting for the master, or you'll be waiting for the banks, or you'll be waiting on SARS before you can take the next step in the process. You have very little control often in relation to how long it takes the master or the banks, to get back to you so you can take the matter forward. But of course, you have 100% control over you. So when the ball is in your court, don't waste time. Now, let me give you an example. I've heard of executors or executors agents who openly admit that sometimes they let 2 or 3 months go by before they advertise the estate for debtors and creditors. Now, guys, that is one of the first things the executor has to do when the letters of executorship is issued. And it's important that it gets done early on in the process, because once those notices are published, there's a 30-day period that has to expire before the executor can take the next step. So it makes sense that when you get your letters of executorship, immediately publish the notice to creditors so that that 30-day period can run its course and expire. So that's an example of what we mean when we say, when the ball is in your court, don't waste time. Now, guys, the second tip that I would say that helps speed up the process when it comes to winding up the deceased estates is, when the ball is in the court of these other role players, follow up regularly. Now, I know that they'll have their own processes and their own turnaround times that one has to respect, of course, and you need to allow them to do their work, but nothing stops you from following up regularly. And oftentimes that can save weeks in the process. Now, I'll give you this example. In one of the estates that I did recently, I filed an L&D account with the master here in Cape Town, right? So the master takes about 21 days to review that, and then they'll get back to you. Yeah, 21 days went by. I didn't hear back from the master. I go down to the master's office. I speak to the registry clerk. I said, listen, explain the story. I was here about 3 weeks ago, filed my L&D account, still haven't heard anything. What's happening, right? So he took my details, he checks his register, and he sees that he's done L&D accounts dating back to even before the date that I lodged mine. And many of them, they've checked already, you see, and their query sheets have gone off. And so he said to me, but I don't see yours here. And I explained, of course, but here's the proof that I delivered mine. So what's the story? And he said, well, he can't find it. It must have, there must be an issue. He'll follow up. I can come back in a week's time. So fast forward 1 week, I go back down again. What's the story with my L&D account? He said he couldn't find it. The only thing he can think of is that it must have gotten mixed up with some of their more general correspondence that they don't prioritize. And he showed me where the correspondence were, and it's like heaps of letters and stuff. And he said to me, listen, I'm very busy. I'm not going to get to that anytime soon, but you are welcome to go through it to see if you can find your L&D account. And I did that, and thankfully I found it, and I was able to give it to him so he could put it back in the system. But now, what's the point of this story, guys? The point is, if I didn't go down after the 21 days to the master's office to go and follow up on what's happening with my L&D account, we would not have discovered so early on that he actually hasn't received it. It's in a heap of correspondence, more general correspondence. It got lost there. and there is a need for someone to go through that stuff that they don't prioritize to pull out this very important L&D account so that they can put it in their system and the process can move on. And so that shows you the importance of following up, even if the ball is in the court of these other role players. Now, guys, the third one I want to share with you. Now, I realize this can be a difficult one, but it gets better with experience. And this one is to anticipate the master's queries as best you can. Now, let me explain. From time to time, obviously, you are going to hand in stuff with the master's office. The master's going to review it, and the master's going to get back to you, right? Now, when the master gets back to you, the master will either have queries or the master will give you the go-ahead to take the next step in the process, right? Now, obviously, you want the go-ahead to take the next step in the process. You don't want queries from the master. So it's a good idea to, when you lodge your thing that the master has to review, it's a good idea to try to anticipate what it is that the master might have a query about and to deal with it at the time when you lodge your thing. I'll give you this example. Let's take an L&D account again, right? If a deceased died with a will, right? And in the will, there's assets listed. And let's say one asset is listed. I'll take a car. Let's say he lists a car that he says must go to Jonathan Daniels for what it's worth. Now, if in your L&D account, if by the time the deceased passed away, the deceased no longer had the car, he sold it beforehand to someone else. Now, obviously, now when you do your L&D account, that car is not going to be listed as an asset in the L&D account, but it might still be in the deceased's will that is now in the master's file. So when the master now gets your L&D account to review, the master sees here's a car, but there's no car here on the L&D account. Immediately what's going to happen, the master is going to ask a query about the car, right? Now, it takes a few weeks to deal with that correspondence. Why? I mean, it's going to take some time before the query gets to you. It's going to take some time for you to respond. It's going to take some time for the master to then consider your response. So if you now could have dealt with that query from the start, when you filed your L&D account, you would have saved yourself a few weeks by not needing to deal with the master's query. That's what I mean when I say try to anticipate the master's queries as best you can. Now, guys, that certainly has helped me. Those 3 tips have certainly helped me save weeks, if not months, when it comes to winding up the deceased estate. I hope it can help you too. I hope you found some value in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you back here next time. And until then, take care and cheers for now.